What's up, world? What's going on, world? You know who this is. You know who this is. It's, you know who this is. It's the author. Right back at that ass again. Here's another one. I just want to make this brief video, man. I didn't even plan to make a video today, man, but I was thinking about something when I was in the restroom, man, and I was thinking about how the gangbangers, man. These gangbangers pretty much run the black community. Now, the black female, she's like more like the colonel. She's she you know oversees or pretty much sometimes like even in slavery days. I made this one video about how the black woman is a slave master and the black community is the new plantation. And, you have those workers. So like, these gang bangers, man, they pretty much run it in terms of the day-to-day drug operations and the activities. And pretty much everyone in the community is afraid of these gang bangers. Why this is why you had a no snitching policy. Even though a kid was just murdered. But the black woman is like the colonel. She gets the drug money, the welfare money, whatever else assistance she gets. So she pretty much is the colonel who kind of everyone has the overseer has to make sure that the plantation is run right, and the colonel will pay him so much. It's that type of situation, I feel. And I was thinking about that, man, how pretty much the gang banging mama's boys are pretty much the ones who run and terrify the black community, or what's left of it. Because like you can't even say you can't even say anything in terms of if you see a murder. What I'm saying, there's no snitching. I was talking to this brother, man. I responded to this comment. He made a video. He made a good point too. A lot of these in terms of young black boys, the young black boys who are raised in the inner city, or even young black boys in general who don't have their fathers. You identify with your father. You don't have your father there, or a man in the household, at least a grandfather or somebody like that. You fail to have an identity as a boy. So you have these black boys growing up with no identity, so they'll join the gangs to find themselves an identity, which is a very dangerous way of trying to find an identity. You're pretty much dividing up black men into little groups, and then they go to war with themselves. But basically, and that goes pretty deep too, but I don't want to go too deep into that. I just want to focus on pretty much on our side of the fence. But basically, they join the gangs to find that identity. So nowadays too, either like when I was growing up, the young black boys, like we didn't have an identity, so we went to the gangs. You still have that going on today, but sometimes what will happen is the young black boy will find his identity, but he'll find it through his mother. So he'll find that identity through a matriarchal parenting system. So that's where you'll get some of the gays and the hey, that's where you'll get some, not, just to keep it real, that's where you'll get some of the feminine guys. So the young boys who are straight, who are just halfway messed up, they'll find their identities in a gang, and some of the others, more and more young black boys are finding their identity through their mother, since it's pretty much mother or sister or auntie fill the household. No grandfather, no uncle, no father, nothing. So you don't have a male. You need a male in the house. Yeah, because like when I was growing up, it was a male in the house every day. Now, not my father, but my grandfather. I was able to see him every day. So No matter how rough things got, I was able, and he took up time with me, in terms of we used to go outside and he that's how I learned responsibility, cleaning up the yard. I do certain chores. I'll go with him on certain jobs that he had. And when he was working when he was working and after construction, and when he got older and worked on buildings as far as janitorial services, I go with him sometimes and assist him with that. See, that was the way I found my identity. So that's why I don't think I got, even though I was, kind of rough around the edges as a kid, I never went too far because I did have, I know I would have disappointed someone who didn't adhere to that bad behavior, so I was able to find my identity. But, a lot of these young black boys, ain't nothing in the house but sister, mother, auntie. So now, quite naturally, you have all that. It's not enough. It's more estrogen in the house than testosterone. So that's why a lot of these young boys have quick tempers. They overdo it when they address something. A lot of times they become bullies because the mother is usually a single mother is bitter, so she's a bully. So that's where they get a lot of these bad behaviors. Idolizing Jordans. His mother idolizes purses, weaves, jewelry. He idolizes jewelry. He idolized cars. His mother idolized cars. Because like a lot of times too, females are more into material wealth than men. Men are more naturally men that are right in their head are more spiritual. From the most part. For the most part, not saying it's not materialistic guys out there, but a lot of that materialism has come from the break in the black community. Now, a lot of guys are wearing earrings in both ears, just like their mother. Their mother wore earrings in both ears. Sister wore earrings in both ears. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, that's the situation. So, and just like too, and a lot of these young black boys who become gang bangers. I made another video about blacks. We don't talk enough in the home. The worst part, I think the video is called "The Worst Part About Growing Up Being Black" is the lack of communication in the home. And a lot of these dudes are hurting inside, man. Like it was this guy back when he used to gang bang. His name was Monster Cody. His name is like Shakur or something now, but his name was Monster Cody. And he was a gang banger for the Crips back in the day. The way he got his name is that him and this other guy, when he was gang banging, it kind of like a Tookie Williams story. But him and this guy, when he was gang banging, him and this guy stomped this dude out so bad they disfigured his face. But I think Monster Cody was messing with the dude, but the dude wasn't no pushover. The dude must have swung on him and knocked him down or something. The dude fought back, and he was embarrassed. So him and his man stomped this dude out, and then the cops came, and the cops saw the guy with a disfigured face, and the cops looked at the guy and said, "Man, whoever did this must have been a monster." And that's another thing too. A lot of these black dudes won't fight one-on-one. They want to jump you. 4 or 5 or 6 of them on one person. That's how a lot of these black females will fight. No matter how small, it could be a fat girl and a skinny girl, and she'll still have 5 of her friends jump on the one skinny girl just to ensure that she can take a win. Just like the girls who were jumping that teacher in Charlotte not too long ago. I just saw this one video, man, where the skinny black female, she was fighting back because she had been bullied so much by these black girls, and they weren't even. She was like thin, man. She was fighting fat chicks like that was 4 times her size, and they was still scared, man. And the mother actually came. I think this was in Atlanta. The mother actually came and helped the daughter beat the skinny girl up. The mother came up to the school and helped her daughter beat this little skinny girl up. Then her daughter, I think, was already bigger than the girl. That girl was like this. That girl was really tiny, man, really skinny, man. She said she only fought back because she just got tired of them messing with her all the time. But not to get off the topic, but yeah. So yeah, with the Monster Cody type situation. But yeah, the guy Monster Cody, he was in an interview because I guess he had was doing some prison time, and his father was this NFL star, but his father was never around, and they was asking him. He had smart answers with everything, when the commentator asked him questions. But then when the commentator asked him about his father, he was like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "My father wasn't around." He was like, "Did that affect you?" The white dude said, "Did that affect you?" He was like, "Yeah, man." He broke down and started crying, man. He's like, "That's messed up. How are you not gonna want your own son? And all that shooting and killing he did, growing up, but all that was stemming from him not having an identity, man, not having his father. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm saying that had something to do with it. It played a role in some of his bad behavior, him not having his identity. However, those bad behaviors that he learned in terms of the lightning fast temper and all of that, he learned those were learned behaviors. Because I mean, sometimes too, a lot of these black females will make an excuse. Well, if he had had his father, well, yeah, that's true in terms of the identity. If he had had his father, maybe he could have been better. But the absence of the father, those behaviors that these kids are learning, like with the quick, fast temper and jumping people, they're getting that from someone. They're getting that from females. That's learned behavior. Now, if the father had been in a home that learned behavior that he learned from the house full of women, he could have the father could have controlled that. His testosterone could have evened everything out. That way that the Monster Codys, those mama's boys would have learned how to be men. Instead of gang banging mama's boys. Because it was him and a dude stomped the dude out. It was still 2-on-1. You know what I mean? That's and even when you get into a gang, they jump you in. Everybody against you. So it's just that mama's boy mentality type of thing. But you don't fight each person 1-on-1. So, but yeah, man. But that type of I think that's what causes young black boys to be gang members, and then the lack of testosterone in the household allows them to take on those traits of females, and they incorporated the learned bad behavior, which is ultimately can lead them to the gangs and things like that in the prisons. So that's how. So not having a father kind of hurts them because it couldn't balance out all that estrogens. Because a real black man coming into a home that's a strong black man, first of all, you ain't gonna have no house full of women. All those other sisters and aunties are gonna have to stay at their house. And the mother's gonna go ahead and be in the kitchen and do the cooking and cleaning, and she's gonna learn how to shut her damn mouth. And the household is gonna be clean. He's gonna clean house, man. That's why a lot of these black females don't want a strong black man in the home, because they know a real black man is gonna clean the house. He ain't gonna put up with 8 of them being on the porch just talking shit all day. He gonna clean that house up, bro. All these friends of yours can go home. Matter of fact, you ain't gonna be hanging out with them no more. You need to find you some decent friends, somebody who ain't gonna steal people who ain't gonna steal the silverware, and let's go ahead and clean this house up. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? A real black man ain't gonna be able to put up with all that mouth, all that lip, all that attitude, all that estrogen. Yeah, it's a time for some of that, but just like with Malcolm X in that scene with his wife, he's like, "Woman, don't you raise your voice in my house." You know what I'm saying? Take that testosterone, like you getting a little too. And she wasn't nearly as loud as a lot of these black females today. He'd have had to slap one of the ones today. She just kept talking. She didn't really even have that high tone. These ones today, "What's up, nigga? Bruh. You know what I'm saying? So shit, but yeah, man. So that type of mentality, man, and then the young black boys joining the gangs, and then the gangs pretty much terrorize the community, and that's when you get all hell's breaking loose, man. Because I remember when I lived in Rochester, New York, the drug dealers across the street, and this was something that I find I was just thinking about this. This is the thought that made me wanna that triggered me to actually make me wanna make this video. So and I remember this: the drug dealer guy across the street, bitch ass dude, because he was one of those dudes who actually the mother sent him to college, but I guess he failed out of there after a semester and came back home and tried to sell drugs. So they were selling that shit over there, and he one time too, I think he left, and some guys came over to the house and pretty much raided the house, took the drugs, wrapped his mother and her boyfriend and his sister up. I think they raped his girlfriend, but he left. He left right before they got there. Some old real bullshit. But in the community, one of the last white folks left. It was this couple who lived right next door to us, and they were the only ones my grandparents would talk to. And they pretty much stood up, man. It was like, well, hey, look, when they saw them doing all that activity, because I mean, it was obvious what they were doing, man. They have like 10 or 11 cars all lined up, one in front of the other, and they come around a corner and go into his driveway. It's like, first of all, dude, you high profiling a bit too much. And they directly across the street, like I can see it every day. Like you can sit on your porch and actually watch all this bullshit. It's like, first and foremost, dude, you in the inner city, you in the hood. The streets, like what Jay-Z said, the streets is watching. They watching you, bro. Ain't nobody gonna let you stay up in the inner city and you have money and they don't. They gonna take that shit. They gonna take that shit. That's why people who were really the best at that, they might have did their daily activities in the inner city, but they lived in the suburbs. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys too. Melvin and the big drug dealer Melvin. I forget the brother's name in Baltimore back in the 50s and 60s. Well, actually, I think he was born in the 50s or 60s. Well, no, he was running dice games or something in the 50s and 60s, but he was a big drug dealer selling that heroin stuff, I think, back in the day. He lived in the suburbs and he had his crew sell that stuff in the inner city. But he didn't have all that stuff in his house, man. I mean, this dude had stuff where his head was laid. I mean, he had drugs in his house. So, I mean, to make a long story short, the white couple, one of the only white couples left in the community, they called the police. And I guess the drug dealer's mom got wind of it because she knew he was doing that shit and she was taking the money. But his mom got wind of it, and then they came across the street and talked with the white couple who lived directly next door to us, which was just right across the street from them too, because they were directly across the street from us. And the white couple lived on the left-hand side of us directly. And they went ahead. I guess they threatened them. Then the white couple, a few days later, the white couple moved out, and they went ahead and they went off deep and lived in the country. They moved to the country. But I used to love their puppy, their dog, man. The dog's name was Brandy, and it kind of grew up when I was growing up. So I used to see the dog run back and forth. The dog would run, I run. The dog run back, I run back. But the point, what I think is so sad about that is, first and foremost, now, what my grandfather set up in that community, it was pretty much in the 70s. So you already had white flight already beginning. So by the late 80s, early 90s, you had all that drug shit going on. Now, this is the story for almost every black inner city in America where you have a black population of at least 25% or more. That's pretty much the story. White flight happened in the 70s, and then all that crack and shit hit your block in the late 80s and early 90s, along with all the gangs. Now, here's the thing. And my grandmother used to tell me to be quiet. Don't talk about them. Even if we were in the house, she said that we couldn't even talk about what was going on across the street. That's how scared. And she was a strong woman. But that's how scared she was, and I can imagine the whole community was terrorized. So the drug dealers and the gang bangers, that's why I said they run the community. But what was so bad about the situation is the only whites, I think, I forget. I think their name was like Dean or Roxanne. But the Dean and Roxanne, they were the only whites left in the community. They were one of the only whites left on that street. So the community was predominantly black and Hispanic. So basically, it took whites to actually stand up and say, okay, I'm gonna call the police on them. And then once they were threatened, no one stood up to support them or the community. So they left. They just went out to the country. But here's the thing: most of the blacks who live in the inner city, they can't afford to move out anywhere. They can't afford to move to the country, to move way out. So the only people who actually complained about the drug dealers were the one group who really didn't have to live where we were living in the first place. Because I mean, as soon as they was threatened, they just left. They had the money to just leave and go to the country. We didn't have that money to leave and go to the country. Where I was staying, my mother and them, they still stay in that place. And it's been about what 25 years since that happened. Roxanne and them, Dean, that couple, they been gone. Their daughter's probably in her 20s now. She was a baby then. But that's a shame, because the only ones that spoke up was the white couple, and the whole community should have been speaking up against that shit, because he put everybody at risk. What if the guys who did the invasion, what if they chose the wrong house? Because we live directly across the street. Like if I throw a rock from my porch, I can hit their glass. Like we were directly across the street from them. You know what I'm saying? Right next door, and it's like that whole community was at risk. If they started shooting over there, the strays could have easily hit everybody in that radius. And then not just that, but they're bringing the property value down. That's why a lot of black homes in the inner city, you can't resell them. You got to go ahead and let hope to rent it out to a Section 8 family. Because my granddad, he couldn't even sell that house on Hempel Street. And they spent years keeping it up, making sure it was nice. Now he's older. Now it's just sitting there. So, and that's a bad thing. So, and with the no snitching and all that garbage, that's it, man. You got the gangsters pretty much running. That's why it's not a community. That's why you can't call it a community. That's why it went from being called a neighborhood to a hood. Because a hood, there's no unity. Just like, and then that's why shit like all type of crazy shit like that can go on, and then we'll say, we'll go against the police, but we won't police ourselves, so we kind of need the police, but the police don't care about the inner city. Because the average cop make about, 35, 40 a year. He's not going to live in the inner city. The few black cops that are there, they're going to live in the suburbs. So, I mean, it's just a sad thing, man. It's crazy. And, it's just that situation where you got those gang banging mama's boys pretty much running the what's left of the community. And the thing is, a lot of people are scrutinized. People who actually sit there and talk against what's going on in the inner city, when they talk about, okay, these baby making machines, these irresponsible black mothers having kid after kid, creating recruits for these Bloods and Crips and these Vice Lord gangs. When you talk against that, you're looked at as an Uncle Tom. But and then other people are going to say, oh, you're Uncle Tom, and they want to come after you. But or any brother who's actually talking against, what's creating these gangs. But nobody wants to go after the gang members who are killing 7-year-old, 8-year-old kids, or females who are killing their own boys and girls, stuffing them in freezers, and all types of crazy shit. Black females, black mothers. This one black mother had her kid in a stuffed her in the back of her truck. Had them back there for like a year or two, man. I mean, just sick shit. But nobody, no one in the black community is saying, okay, nobody in the black community is saying, okay, let's go after these. Because if you talk against the average black female, they'll say, oh, okay, man, you're an Uncle Tom. You should be in the Klan. But the gang members, they're killing blacks left and right. That's what the Klan used to do. Aren't they? Shouldn't they be looked at as Uncle Toms? Shouldn't they be looked at as sellouts? If you kill another black, shouldn't they be looked at as coons? If you're afraid to group up with your community and tell on a thug who just shot a 7-year-old girl and you know he did it, aren't you a coon? Aren't you a sellout? Shouldn't you be a part of the Klan? The black community is not even the biggest minority group in the U.S. anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's more or less the Hispanics. So do we need less blacks or more blacks? We need more. So if the gang members are reducing our numbers, anybody who won't tell on who's reducing the numbers, or anybody who's reducing the numbers, should be looked at as a coon and a sellout. Like, why not go after them? You know what I'm saying? Why not get your gun and go after the gang member who's tearing up your community, spraying paint all over the buildings, what they call tagging and all that shit, lowering your property value. You know, why not go after them, man? Why is the coons the ones who talks about, what's going on, what's not being done, but the coon ain't the gang member, the coon ain't the mother who's killing her kid. The coon ain't the black female who will have 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 kids by 6 or 7 different dudes. Why isn't she a coon when they're actually bringing down the hood, or what was left of the black community, the ashes of the black community? Well, why aren't they being looked at as coons and sellouts? I don't get it, but let me know your thoughts on this, man, in terms of what's going on, what you think about for those of you who have had experiences with the inner city. And I mean, you don't even have to have lived in the inner city, but knowing the situation, it's not much to see. And pretty much, even if you didn't live there, everybody knows the story. But make sure to like, subscribe. I'll leave your comments. And I appreciate all the feedback I'm getting from people, man, and to know that, I'm not the only one seeing things in this manner. And, it's other brothers out there sharing content too. So, and that's a good thing as well. But this needs to get out, man, because not enough people. There's some people that are talking about it, but the national news media isn't going to touch it because they've already put the black woman on a pedestal in terms of her being the supreme slave master of the black community, or what's left of the hood, or the ashes of the black community, what they now call the hood. But yeah, let me know what's going on, man. I went a little over, but it's your boy, the author. I'm signing out, man.